Good morning, one and all. It gives me a great pleasure and honor to deliver a lecture on COVID-19 impact on agriculture and livelihoods in India. Actually, the organizer rightly selected the theme called COVID-19 issues, its impact on the different the sectors in the economy. Presently, the COVID-19 or coronavirus issue, it affects the all the lives in the societies as well as in the economy in the in India as well as in the world. In the sense, the whole world is facing its impact on all the economic activity. But when we observe this impact on different economic activities, we might be, knows the more effect on the unorganized sector or the informal sector, because the developing countries like India, we have more informal sector than the formal, the sector, as well as informal worker than the formal worker. More or less, the 90% of that workers are the informal workers, in the sense unorganized workers. Even whatever that agricultural laborers, the farmers, and other aligned activities, that activities and all are comes under this informal sector only, in the sense unorganized sector only. In the sense, so these coronavirus or COVID-19 affects more on agriculture and its aligned activities in India like other developing countries. In the sense, whatever that India is there, when we look after that Indian economic scenario, there are many people, they are living in rural area. In the sense, approximately 60% of the people today, they are living in rural area. These 60% people, majority of the people, they're depending upon agriculture only for their livelihood or as an employment. In the sense, whatever these people, they're depending upon agriculture, in the present condition, they are all facing a severe effect from this COVID-19. So therefore, it is one of the that so important aspect need to discuss in the present condition. Today, that's what I selected. There's agriculture, in the sense impact on uh, COVID-19 on agriculture and livelihoods in India. Actually, whatever these, which one that COVID-19 or coronavirus is there, it affects all walks of life all over the world. In the sense, basically it's an health issue, but it affects all the that life issue also. In the sense, as the novel coronavirus rapidly spreads across the world, health services in many nations are increasingly overwhelmed, while the global economy is falling into an unprecedented recession. In the sense, due to because of this COVID-19, the whole world economy is going to be facing a severe crisis. When we observe the history of economy, in the year 1930, we had a great economic depression. Later on, in the year 1970, we had one more great oil crisis or the economic crisis in the world. After these two economic crises, mostly this is the another most important severe economic crisis in the world economy or global economy. So that's what recently IMF, it's a, that forecasted Indian GDP growth rate during 2020-21 to 1.9%. Actually, the same IMF was, the forecasted the Indian GDP in the January of the same year. It was 5.8%, but in the month of uh, March and April, again the same IMF, that they stated it's going to be declining to 1.9%. When we observed some other organizations, they are also forecasted Indian GDP growth rate during this COVID, that situation. Some of the organizations mentioned it may be less than 1%. Some of the, that so agencies mentioned it may be a 0%. It may be a negative growth rate, like that. So might be so because when we observed the present scenario, so all over the world as well as in India, it may happen. Just now, I told you. So these, which one that COVID-19 or coronavirus is there now, it's going to be affect more on the informal sector workers than the formal sector workers, because it is, whatever these informal sector workers is there or members is there, their income level is very very low, in the sense they are having lower income, so that's therefore they may severely facing these, which one that problem. That's what recently that ILO, International Labour Organization, estimates that 400 million people in India are at a risk of sinking deeper into poverty, because we know very well, like that uh, the developing nations, many people are still today they are suffering from the poverty, like that Latin American countries, South Asian nations, then also that African nations. Majority of the developing nations, the people are, in the sense, are, we may find more poor people in these nations. So therefore, the pandemic has reinforced the links between health, environment, and the economy. Basically, it's an health issue, but it's going to be effect on, the environment as well as the economy. So when we observe the world economy is sliding rapidly towards the recession. In the previous slide, I discussed it. Then I informed, you know, so how the whole world is going to be, you know, facing the economic crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic will shut down large parts of the world economy for at least few months more. In the sense, not only in the present, that are months, in future also, we may be so going to be facing the same problem. That's what recently that IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva stated, that the global growth in 2020 was, negative. Recovery, if any, is expected only in 2021. In the sense, we may expect this recovery in the 2021. So according to that Managing Director of IMF Managing Director of Kristalina Georgieva. Again, according to the International Labour Organization, the rise in unemployment because of COVID-19 could be up to 25 million worldwide. So when we observe this unemployment level or percentage of unemployment in the world, it may increase day by day due to because of COVID-19. Recently, in America and some other the developed nation, also they are also facing the same similar problem. Even even in India also we are having the same the problem. Actually, the Food and Agricultural Organization expects shifts in the supply of and demand for food. It warns of a food uh, crisis if countries do not protect vulnerable people from hunger and malnourishment and deep clogged food supply chains. It means the Food and Agricultural Organization warns of a world regarding the food crisis. In the sense, if we are facing the same crisis, otherwise, in the same crisis is it's improved, otherwise it's continuous in future, the world may is going to be facing the food crisis. Similarly, the United Nations also warned that the COVID-19 crisis could trigger food shortage around the world. Recently, we might be observed the best example, in Kenya, one lady, you know, she cooked a stones. Just imagine it. In the sense, it shows clearly how the whole world is going to be facing the food shortage as well as the food crisis. That was the World Food Program has noted that the COVID-19 crisis is threatening to affect millions of people already made vulnerable by food insecurity and malnutrition. Recently, that what about that example which I have given? In the sense, the lady is going to be cooking the stones because of the food crisis as well as the food shortages. Recently we had one more problem called Ebola. The last 4 years back in Sierra Leone led to a major rise in hunger and malnutrition. In the same way, we may going to be facing this food shortage as well as the food crisis. The small and marginal farmers will also be badly affected if they are unable to continue working their land, earn remunerative product prices, and gain access to markets for purchase or sales. In the sense, not only that agricultural laborer, even small and marginal farmers also is going to be facing these effect due to because of this COVID-19. No, before going to discuss about this impact of COVID-19 on Indian agriculture, let's see the importance of agriculture. In the sense, agriculture, it is a livelihood. It's a livelihood of the majority people of the in developing nations like India. It's a culture of the rural lives. In the sense, the majority of the people in the rural area, they are depending upon this agriculture only. They don't have any other the livelihood to lead their life. So therefore, you know, so these agriculture it's very important, for these rural lives. At present, agriculture above and behind the farming include forestry, dairy, fruit cultivation, poultry, beekeeping, mushroom, arbitrary, etc. In the sense, today, agriculture means not only a farming. Agriculture means, along with farming, it's having other aligned economic activities like forestry, dairy, fruit cultivation, poultry, beekeeping, mushroom, arbitrary, then also animal husbandry. like that. It goes on like this. There are plenty of economic activities we may able to find in rural areas. So, all in the sense we may say all these activities also known as that agriculture. Today, processing, marketing, and distribution of crops and livestock products, etc., are all acknowledged as a part of current agriculture. In the sense, agriculture in the sense, not only you know that cultivating crops and also processing the crops or marketing the crops, otherwise that food articles or food items, and distribution of crops and livestock products, in the sense distribution of both crops and livestock products. These are all known as the agriculture. Thus, the agriculture could be referred to as the production, processing, promotion, and distribution of agricultural products. So that's what agriculture plays a critical role in the entire life of a given economy. Like India and other developing nations, these agriculture plays a critical role in their life. So that's what we used to say. Agriculture is the backbone of the economic system of the nations. Especially in India, we used to say agriculture is the backbone of Indian economy. In addition to providing food and raw material, agriculture also provides employment opportunities to a very large percentage of the population. You know, More or less nearly 60% of the people in India, they are depending upon this primary sector. This primary sector. Let's see something about the impact of COVID-19 on Indian economy. Already we know very well, India is an agricultural country, as nearly 60% of its population depends upon agriculture for in livelihood. It provides food, raw material for industries, and some product for export. In a sense, these agriculture provide food for each and every individual in that nation or in the economy, and also it provides raw materials for some industries like jute industries, cotton industries, and some products for exports also. Approximately 20 to 24% of Indian exports consist by that agricultural and its aligned activities products. Nearly two-thirds of its population depends directly on agriculture for their livelihood. In India, nearly two-thirds of its population depends directly on agriculture and its aligned activities for their livelihood. So therefore, we used to say agriculture is the mainstay of Indian economy. It accounts for 14% of the gross domestic product. When we observed the recent data, according to that 2019 and 20 economic survey, agriculture contributes to our GSDP approximately 14%. It ensures food security for the country and produces several raw materials for industries. In the sense, in India, several industries are mainly they are depending upon this agriculture for their raw materials. Agricultural development is therefore a precondition of our national prosperity. That's what So this agricultural development is considered as our national prosperity. And as India moves from regulations and controls to a total lockdown, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the economy is becoming ever more acute. because the Indian economy, which was already facing a sharp downturn by the end of 2019, when we observed 2018 and 19 and 2019 and 2020, these economic years or financial years, we may find that that declining the growth rate, in the sense the declining the economic growth rate. So that's what in Indian economy, which was already faced a sharp downturn. So since last 2 to 3 years, it will surely record an extraordinarily poor growth rate for the month of March, April, and May. In the sense, whatever the technically fall into different quarters of the financial year is there now. In the year 2020, the first quarter, we may face the extraordinarily poor growth rate in Indian economy. In the same way, if the lockdown continues behind a month, the impact is likely to be even more severe on the working people and on the economy as a whole. In the sense, presently it's affected only, in the sense, only on that unorganized workers. If it is the same lockdown continues behind a month, or in the next month or another month and all, so it may be impact on even all the section of the society, so and also on the economy as a whole. When we observe the lockdown impact on agriculture, actually the economic shock will likely be much more severe for India for two reasons. Because the first one, pre-COVID-19, the economy was already slowing down, compounding existing problems of unemployment, low incomes, rural distress, malnutrition, and widespread inequality. In the sense, already in India, we had a economic crisis. Again, the same, in the sense, we had a crisis. Again, the problem, started in India related to that in the form of COVID-19 or coronavirus. Secondly, India's larger informal sector is particularly vulnerable because whatever our total, that worker is there in India, national total workers is there in India, 465 million workers is there in India. Out of 465 million workers, 422 million workers are informal workers during 2017 and 18. In the sense, around 91% of workers are unorganized workers. Only 9% workers are, that organized workers. These workers are known as vulnerable groups in Indian economy or in Indian workforce. So therefore, these, that informal sector, particularly, they may face more effect due to from this coronavirus or COVID-19 issue. Lacking regular salaries or incomes, these agricultural migrants and other informal workers would be hardest hit during the lockdown period. So therefore, here I focus on the likely impacts on agriculture and livelihoods in India. In continuation of that lockdown impact on agriculture, one can foresee many challenges as a farmer and farm laborers set out to rebuild their lives and livelihoods. Because when that national lockdown from 25th March 2020 has severely affected lives and livelihoods across rural India. In the sense, whatever the lockdown which the government of India implemented in India, so it severely affected so lives and livelihoods across the rural India as well as urban India. But the most affected, which one that group is the vulnerable group. Agriculture and aligned sectors employs more than half of the workforce in the country. In the sense, around 60% of people are living in rural India. A majority of Indian farmers, especially 85% of the Indian farmers, are small and marginal farmers with less than 2 hectares of land. Whatever the small and that marginal farmers is there, they are having less than 2 hectares of land. So therefore, we may say the farmers also a agricultural laborers. Even not only so these farmers, so along with these farmers, more than 9 million active fishers directly depend on fisheries or for their livelihood. 80% of which are small scale fishers. The sector also as a whole employs over 14 million people. The sense, whatever the 80% of small and marginal farmers is there, so the same way we may find so other 14 million people that fishermen so in Indian workforce. Actually, in India, that agriculture is facing a severe effects from COVID-19 because the rabi crops stood ready for harvest in many fields when the COVID-19 crisis brought everything to a halt. This is also the time for the harvest of plantation crops like pepper, coffee, banana, and other horticulture crops. In the aftermath of the lockdown, harvest of the rabi crops has been delayed due to non-availability of labor and then machineries. Because when they are implemented, this lockdown in India, in the initial period, they're not given any exemption for agriculture or the farm sector. The whole economy was shut down. The whole economy, in the sense, the whole nation was locked down. During that period, the farmers they didn't get any laborers and then any machineries to do that harvest as well as to do some showing in their field. Like they faced the transport facilities and restriction on movement farmers of perishable commodities like fruits, vegetables, and flowers in particular have been incurring losses. We might be knows very well in Karnataka itself, several farmers they destroyed their that crops in the field itself, especially that perishable crops like that vegetables, flowers, some horticultural crops like a banana and other that horticulture crops and all. They, in the sense, they destroyed in the field itself due to because of non-availability of the labor, non-availability of the transport system, non-availability of the market for their product. So, in the sense, for all these reasons, they destroyed their product themselves in their field. This is the peak flow, flowering season when the demand is also high. In the sense, because that especially in India or in Karnataka and some other state, whatever the February, March, April, and then May is there. So this is the marriage season. This is the marriage season, during this period, they may have more demand for their, this type of vegetables, and then fruits, and then the flowers and all. But during this period itself, they you know they lost their crops due to because of this COVID 19. In continuation of this lockdown impact on agriculture, many small farmers in Karnataka and other states who cultivate flower as a cash crop in their farming system have incurred loss in what would otherwise, have been the period of peak earning from sale of flowers. Just now I told you the season, in the sense the marriage season, in the sense during this season, the floriculturist, in the sense the farmers, those who are cultivating the flowers, they may get more demand. They may get more demand for their crop. So, but due to because of this coronavirus, most of all the that functions, marriages, and some other that activities are shut down. So therefore, they faced a severe the loss. Harvest of plantation crops in Karnataka and states has been similarly delayed, affecting the cash flow of farmers and farm laborer. Agricultural laborers are not able to go to work due to lack of transport, because the whole transport system was closed down. The government you know restricted on this transport, especially that vehicle transport. So therefore, so these agricultural laborer, they are not able, didn't move from one area to another area. So even the labor work under the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme also stopped in all over India. In the sense, at least if they got the MGNRGA that work in their villages or in their native, they may be surviving. Whatever this lockdown impact is there on agriculture, in the same way, these impact is there on its aligned activities also. Here I taken two, that activities. One is that dairy, another one is the poultry. In the sense, these two, which one that allied activities are faced a severe effect from COVID-19 in India. In the sense that farmers, those who are you know engaged in this small dairy and then poultry and animal husbandry and some other aligned agricultural aligned activities, they had faced a major loss, due to because of uh, they didn't get any proper market for their products. In the same way, the fisheries, otherwise the fishers are not able to. Sorry, fishers have not been able to go out to sea since end of March, and are subsequently worried about the 45-day annual fishing ban in line with the fishing breeding seasons coming into forces along with east coast from mid-April. Both brackish and freshwater aquaculture farmers have also been affected with harvest delayed due to labor non-availability, market closure, and movement restrictions. Exports of shrimps to Europe and the US has stopped, and local fish prices have fallen, leading to loss of income. Both marina and inland fisher also faced, that a problem due to because of this coronavirus. You know, whatever that fisherman is there, they're also faced, this problem because non-availability of market. Even there, which one that export also closed down. they both whatever that Europe and United States, they stopped the exports from India. So that's why even so these fishermen also they are facing that the problem from this COVID-19. See, these are all which the problem which the farmers they are going to be facing due to because of COVID-19. To resolve this problem, otherwise to help these vulnerable section, the government, both central as well as the state, even the local governments, some NGOs, some philanthropists, they're all they're uh, they're extended their hand to help these people. In spite of all these measures, and in view of continuing restrictions on movements of people and vehicle traffic, concerns have been raised regarding negative implications of a COVID-19 pandemic on the farm economy. So this is the peak of rabi seasons in India, and crops like wheat, gram, lentil, mustard, etc., even including paddy in irrigated tracts, are at harvestable stage or almost reaching maturity. So this is the time when the farm harvest reach the mandis, in the sense market ads, for assured procurement operations by designated government agencies. Moreover, any severe disruption to the supply of perishable fruits and vegetables, dairy products, fish, etc., having mobilized to meet the increased demand from a bulging middle class as well as urban and rural consumer, may create irreparable damage to all actors in the supply chain. In continuation of these immediate challenges, the migration of workers from few parts to their native places have also triggered panic buttons, as they are crucial for both harvesting operations and post-harvest handling of a produce in storage and marketing centers. The Union Home Minister, in a very significant move, had notified to exclude movement of farmers from farm laborers, so and harvesting and showing related machines from the purview of lockdown. But they took this decision after 10 to 15 days later. So that's what because see, agriculture means each and every day, you know, that in the agriculture, the supervision is required each and every day. So whatever these 10 to 15 days is there now, so these that time, in the sense during this period, so many of the farmers, majority of the farmers, they lost their crops. In the sense, they delayed showing their crops. So these are all things what happened. But even though later on, that Union Home Minister, they took decision about so uh, which one, so giving some relaxation for this farm and farm related activities, making the food grains, fruits and vegetables and other essential items available to consumer both in rural and urban areas, as is the most critical challenge for government machineries during the lockdown period. Smooth functioning of the supply chain with adequate safety measures for the people involved is of paramount importance. Transportation of public distribution system items to lost, mile delivery agents by both the train and road has to be ensured by respective government agencies. Distribution of the commodities to vulnerable population while maintaining prescribed guidelines and protocol, particularly of a social distancing, so must be effectively monitored. As the ongoing lockdown coincides with the Rabi harvesting season, farmers across the country look up to the government to ensure uninterrupted harvesting of the crops as well as smooth procurement operations. The Union Home Minister circular waiving restrictions on the inter and intra-state movements of farmers, laborers, as well as harvesting and related farm machines is indeed a step in a right direction. So just now, whatever I mentioned in the previous slide. So, but it was delayed. Okay, it was delayed. Okay. So, while ensuring availability of farmers for critical farm operations, their safety, so from any COVID infections and welfare must be prioritized by the government systems. The sale of dairy products, especially, you know, then fish and poultry, etc., has also been hit during the lockdown period as the uptake by the organized industry players has been affected due to shortage of workforce and transport issue. As weather has been very erratic over past few months in many parts, harvested produce must also be protected from such risk. Let's see, you know, the agriculture and supply chains. The COVID-19 is disrupting some activities in agriculture and supply chains. Preliminary reports show that the non-availability of migrant labor is interpreting some harvesting activities and showing activities, particularly in northwest India as well as some other rest of India, especially in Karnataka and some other, uh, uh, south uh, states. There are disruption in supply chains because of transportation problems and other issues. Price have declined for wheat, vegetable, and other crops. Yet consumers are often paying more. In the sense, due to because of these middlemen, that in the sense the middleman exploitations in the agricultural marketing, the farmers in the sense they didn't get proper price for their products. But in the sense they paid less price. They paid less price for their product, even though the consumers are in the sense they paid more. In the sense when that when we observed which one the farm gate price and then to the consumer price, there may be a huge gap between. So these the farm produce price as well as the consumer price. In the sense, these middlemen they exploited both the farmers as well as the consumers. So that's why the price have declined for all the agricultural products, include vegetables, include fruits, include flower, include all the day-to-day, that agricultural that things. But yet consumers are often paying more. Media reports show that the closure of hotels, restaurants, sweet shops, and tea shops during the lockdown is already depressing milk sales. Meanwhile, the poultry farmers have been badly hit due to misinformation, particularly on social media. So, in the sense, due to because of a chicken, in the sense, due to because of this chicken are the carriers of COVID-19 and all. So, even this poultry farm also faced the severe effect due to because of this coronavirus. Okay, when we observe the impact on the livelihood, so because of this COVID-19, the poor section of the society are always the hardest hit in any disaster or pandemic situation. In India as well as in the world, for any disaster or any environmental, the disaster. So who is going to be facing a more affects, these poor section of the society or vulnerable group of the economy. These people are the hardest, that hits in any economy. So with about 80%, 85% of Indian farm households being a small and marginal farmers, and a significant part of the population being landless farm laborers, welfare measures to contain any damage from COVID are definitely going to help them with sincere implementations. The focus on the government, therefore, has to be to protect the lives of every citizen. However, the people living on agriculture and aligned activities, mostly those losing their income from informal employment at this lockdown period, have to be provided with alternative avenues, especially the cash transfers till the economy so bounce back in the sense. So when this health crisis is successfully overcome, in the sense, regarding uh, this issue, we may observe several mitigations measure. So regarding this, we will have a discussion little bit later. Sorry for the disturbance. In the last slide, we had a discussion about the impacts of livelihoods and the impacts of the agriculture in India due to the COVID-19. In continuation of that, let's see some mitigation measure about the COVID-19 related to Indian agriculture and the livelihoods. To sustain the demand for agriculture commodities, investments in key logistics must be enhanced. Moreover, e-commerce and delivery companies and startups need to encourage it with the suitable policies and incentives. The small and medium enterprises running with the raw materials from the agriculture and allied sector or otherwise also need special attention so that the rural economy doesn't collapse. If we need to protect the rural lives, we need to implement these mitigation measures to improve that agriculture in India. To avoid the immediate concern of a scarcity of farm labor, policy must facilitate every easily availability of machineries through the state entities. Farmer producer organizers or customer hiring centers must be take some suitable incentives. It's also suggested to explore leveraging NRGA funds to pay part of the farm labor, with farmers paying the balance wage amount to lessen the monetary burden on the farmer while ensuring wage employment to the landless laborers and workers. To answer queries relating to the announced measures of the government addressing grievances of farmers besides providing advisories on farm operations, availability of agri inputs, dedi- dedicated toll-free helplines, call centers must be established by the government. Agriculture in India is a state subject, and as has been observed in past years, policies and programs vary from one state to the other state in India. We can't find a similar agriculture policy everywhere in India because due to the geographical differences or environmental imbalance all over in the sense in a different that region, the different states they are having the so different agricultural policies and programs to encourage, to protect, to sustain their farmers and farming system. However, the agricultural activities being interconnected in neighboring regions, agri shops or benefits must not distort the market scenario. Waiver in of farm loans, evidence suggests have not fully benefited the majority of the small and marginal farmers. Recently, whatever the farm loan waiving is there, in the sense these, the benefits taken by the large farmers, the sense the landlords, these small and marginal farmers won't get this benefit. Rather, it affects the future credit behavior of the borrowers and thus negatively impacts the agriculture credit culture altogether. As the Kharif season is fast approaching, institutional lending of crop loans should be expanded and facilitated for smooth flow of credit to borrowing farmers. Because majority of the farmers in Karnataka as well as in India, for their agricultural investment, mainly they are depending upon these that government assistance or that financial institutions. Agri inputs, seeds, fertilizers, agrochemicals, etc., have to be pre-provisioned for easy availability. Private sector must play a significant role with the necessary policy support because not only a government can distribute or support for these agricultural inputs, seeds, fertilizers, and agrochemicals and all. So therefore, the private sector must play a significant role with the necessary policy support to help the farmer. The relaxation of the norms by agricultural produce market committees, allowing farmers to sell their produce behind the designated mandis will certainly ease the burdens of farmers. Actually, in India, we started APMCs to help the farmer in the sense to protect the price of that crops to the farmers, but due to certain regulations, due to certain that conditions, sometimes they are unable to sell their product to these APMCs. So therefore, the government need to relaxation of these norms to help the farmer in India as well as in Karnataka. State governments must gear up their machineries for smooth procurement operations for farmers, marketable surplus at a minimum support price or through other price support schemes. Because these agriculture comes under the state government purview, so therefore they must be gear up their machineries to increase these MSPs to the sense to support farmers to get a good remunerative price. Under the COVID-19 pandemic, being a health crisis of unprecedented proportions, the major share of future budget allocation obviously would be appro- appropriation for the health sector. However, investment should not be crowded out of the primary sector to prevent irresponsible damage to the farm economy. That in the sense to cover this corona to control this corona virus or this COVID-19 pandemic, the government need to share more fund for the health sector, or the government need to allocate more fund for this health sector. But they should not, you know, neglect this agriculture. So giving more, which one that's it, so concentrated to that health sector. That how that health is important in the same way the agriculture as well as the farm economy also very important. If you have a sound and healthy, you know, that the physique as well as the body, we require a good, which one, that food grains as well as the food product. So therefore, we need to give equal importance for health sector as well as the farm economy. Manufacturing and services sector may be severely hit in the short term time, uh, short run till the time the economy bounce back. It will be thus very appropriate to focus attention on the agriculture sector as a growth engine and also to bring resilience in food security. At this critical stage, where climate change is already adversely impacting the agriculture sector, productive investments include on research and nutrition should be very uh, you know, prosperous. Structural reforms such as land leasing, contract farming, and private agricultural markets, etc., have long been advocated to bring enhanced investments into the agriculture sector and push its growth. However, there has not been uniform implementation of these legislations by state governments, and so the full potential of the sector is unrealized. These reforms need a significant political will. Concern of a slowdown in the zeal of states post-COVID scenario could be tackled with a suitable initiatives, mechanisms by the federal government to the states with a burgeoning populations. So there is a corresponding rise in food demand in India. However, the negative externalities of the Green Revolution, particularly the environmental trade-offs and staple cereals fundamentalisms have seen been realized. It is thus desirable to switch over to a suitable model with a far stronger nutrition focus where diets are more diverse. A post-COVID situation offers that unique opportunity to purpose the existing food and agricultural policies for a healthier population. Because the present situation, you know, changed the perception of the people about health and health issues. In future, we may redefine, redefine, you know, so these diet and some other, health related aspects and the the protections, then the precautions about the health and all. There have been a global concern rather speculations on restrictions of exports of agricultural commodities by few global players. India being a trade surplus on commodities like rice, meat, milk products, tea, honey, horticulture products, etc., may seize the opportunities by exporting such products with a suitable uh, with a with a stable agri export policies. India's agricultural exports are valued at 38 billion US dollars in 2018-19 and can rise up further with the productive policies. Development of export supportive infrastructure and logistics will need investments and support of the private sector that will be in the long-term interest of farmers in boosting their income. Many climate models predict a favorable monsoon in the 2020 seasons as the El Nino weather phenomenon that disrupts rainfall in India is not evident. Thus, this is needed a good news in the COVID scenario, assuming agriculture can practice largely unscathed. In continuation of these mitigation measures, good news is that Government of India has now increased its focus on nutrition, security, and raising farmer income. In the sense, uh, through the PDS system and the government, that they distributed some food grains for the citizens, and also the raising farmer incomes rather than enhancing farm productivity. Changing the consumer behavior with the suitable programs and initiatives is already in the agenda. For all this to happen, the existing landscapes of policy initiatives that favor the two big staples of wheat and rice has to change. In the sense, in India, when we observed the geographical region, the northern part of India or the northern part of people are preferring more wheat, the southern part of people are preferring more rice. These, in the sense, the landscape of a policy initiative that favor these two big staples of wheat and rice also to change. Designing agricultural policies post COVID-19 scenarios must include these imperatives for food systems transformations in India. Designing agricultural policies, the post COVID-19 scenario must include these imperatives for food system transformation in India. Using these, which one that mitigation measure, when we observe using social safety nets as a bridge between health shocks and economy shocks. The lockdown has choked off almost all economic activity, as we discussed in the previous slides. In urban areas, leading to the widespread loss of jobs and income for informal workers and the poor. Estimates by the Central for Monitoring Indian Economy (CMIE) shows that unemployment shot up from 8.4% in mid-March to 23% in the first week of April. Recently, we observed it crossed 30%. In the urban areas, unemployment soared to 30.9% as of April 5th. Now it may more than 30%. The shutdown will cause untold misery for informal workers and the poor who lead precarious lives facing hunger and malnutrition. The best way to address these urgent needs is to use social safety nets extensively to stabilize their lives so with food and cash. The Indian government has quickly responded to the crisis and announced a 2.22 billion relief package, which includes food and cash transfer. Several state governments have announced their own support packages. For example, in Karnataka, recently, Honorable Chief Minister, he announced around 1,610 crore special packages for different, the social group. Using, the same thing, the central government's relief package called Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, Prime Minister Plan for Well-being of the Poor, is aimed to providing safety nets for those hit the hardest by the COVID-19 lockdown. However, it is inadequate compared to the enormous scale of the problem. So, the Nobel Prize economist, the last year Nobel Prize economist, Esther Duflo, and the Indian economist, the Abhijit Banerjee, says that the government should have been much older with the packages social transfer schemes. The 22 billion in spending is only 0.85% of India's GDP. So these two economists, they suggested to spend around $22 billion uh, to as a special package for this social transfer schemes to uplift or to protect these that vulnerable groups as well as that farmers in India. This is much lower than the packages passed by the United States, European and European Asian countries. European Asian countries should India should think bigger and be spending at least 4% to 5% of GDP. The central and state government must spend more, even the central and the state governments must spend more, even if there is a one-time hike in the physical deficit. Actually, just we will see the recent government measure to protect these, that farmers as well as that vulnerable groups in India. While the government announced several measures, including exemptions of agriculture and fisheries from lockdown restrictions, in late March, there has been lacuna in delivery and implementation of the ground level. There have also been gaps in reaching relief in cash and kind to the poor, needy and vulnerable, as seen in media reports. Several civil society organizations and NGOs with field presence have been engaged in providing needed support that is possible under the circumstances. For example, the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, for instance, has been engaged in providing relief to the communities in these difficult times through use of technology to provide crop advisories, conduct phone-in programs, and facilitate aggregations and the sale of a produce through farmer producer organizations promoted by that has. Awareness programs on COVID-19 and precautionary measures to be taken have been conducted in many villages. And also, the guidelines issued by the Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, on 15th April 2020, following extension of lockdown till May 3rd May 2020, exempt agriculture, horticulture, animal husbandry, poultry and fishery and allied activity forms lockdown restrictions. Laborers can go to work, in the sense the laborers can go to work, the markets are to open, procurement is to happen, and agri-input shops and agro-processing centers are to function. MNRGA work will also commence effective disseminations of the guidelines and implementations on the ground will be very crucial as a farmer harvest the rabi crop and start preparation for the Kharif seasons. In continuation of the government measures, going forward, one can foresee many villages as a farmer and farm labor set out to rebuild their lives and livelihoods. Migrant laborers who have managed to return will not be able to go back immediately. Some may not wish to go back also, given that travels many may have endured following the lockdown. There is a need for both the relief and rehabilitation measures to help the affected and pick the threads again, overcome the loss sustained, and rebuild their lives. Precautionary measures like maintaining social distancing and hand washing will have to continue as COVID-19 continues. Proactive measures by the state with humanitarian perspective are called are for as we begin operating in a new normal, more relief in kind. So, example, making the PDS universal, ensuring whoever is needy gets the necessary support and is not left starving due to bureaucratic hurdles like lack of ration cards. Finally, the cash, in the sense, increasing the amount under the Prime Minister Samman Kishi Nidhi from nearest present rupees 6,000 to rupees 15,000, and releasing the first installment before tariff measure to curb charging extra bit interest by informal sector lenders, waiver of interest for the quarter on term loans and overdraft agriculture and MSME accounts, compensating loss incurred due to damage to perishable crops like flowers, so fruits, vegetables, and fish, and enlarging the scope of a MGNREGS to include harvest of crops on farmer field by labor and value addition to produce by women. After observed these government measures and mitigation measures and all, we suggested a few measures to control you know these which one COVID-19 impact on farming and livelihoods in India. Here are some measures are required to keep the agriculture sector and supply chain working smoothly. The government has correctly issued lockdown guidelines that exempt from farm operations and supply chains, but implementation problems leading to labor shortage and falling price should be rectified. And also, in several local authorities, they are not allowed these laborers to move from one place to another place. Keeping supply chains functioning well is crucial to food security. It should be noted that 2 to 3 million deaths in the Bengal famine of 1943 were due to food supply disruption, not a lack of food availability. In the sense, we had a sufficient food, but we failed to distribute properly. The same situation happened during 1943 in Bengal. The farm population must be protected from the coronavirus to the extent possible by testing and and practicing social distancing. Farmer must have continued access to markets. This can be a mix of private markets and governments procurement. Small poultry and dairy farmers need more targeted help as their pandemic-related inputs, supply, and market access problems are urgent. Farmers and agricultural workers should be included in the government's assistance package and any social protection programs addressing the crisis. As lockdown measures have increased demand, so has risen uh, for home delivery of groceries and e-commerce. So these trends should be encouraged and promoted. So the government should promote trade by avoiding export bans and import restrictions. In the sense, if the government, you know, so providing the assistance for these farmer to distribute their farm products to door delivery or home delivery to the customer, to the customer. So then also the government should promote the trade by avoiding the export bans. So whatever that export bans is there presently, and then import restrictions is there. If we remove, otherwise, if we uh, so remove these things, we may able to improve. Otherwise, these farmer uh, uh, problems. So finally, we will have a policy suggestions. We will see one by one. Below are some additional measures needed in addition to the government package. So already we discussed that government measure, mitigation measure, then suggestion measures. Finally, we have a policy suggestions like a food and nutrition security, because government warehouses are overflowing with 70 million tons of rice and wheat. But the problem is we are facing, uh, to distribute properly to the needy people. In order to avoid exclusion errors, it is better to offer universal coverage of distribution in the next few months. Nutrition programs like ICDS, midday meals, and Anganwadis should continue to work as essential service and provide rations and meals to receptions at their homes. Eggs can be added to improve nutrition for children and women. Several states government have started innovative programs to help informal workers and the poor, especially in India, in Karnataka, whatever the Indira canteen we have. Again, in Kerala, Akshaya patra something they have. Then in that Tamil Nadu, whatever Amma canteen they started. So these are all the best example for So these the several state government have started innovative programs to help the informal workers and the poor. For example, just now, the mentioned, so the Kerala government is providing meals with diversified diets at the doorsteps of households. Then the cash transfers, unemployment informal workers need cash income support. In the sense, if you want to overcome from these the present economic crisis, we need to increase, otherwise improve the the purchasing power of the common man. No, if the purchasing power increases, automatically we may able to come out of from this economic crisis. Otherwise, that the present condition. So the government has provided rupees 500 per month to the bank accounts and of 20 million women via the Jan Dhan financial inclusion program. But this too is insufficient. We need to have minimum rupees 3,000 per month to cash transfer for the next 3 months, because these whatever that Jan Dhan account holder is there, especially that women is there, they are not getting any. They didn't get any employment opportunities during these 3 months. That's what if they increase it. So minimum of 3,000 per month in the cash transfer for the next 3 months, they may able to improve. Then migrant workers. Recently, we are all observing this is one of the biggest, hectic for the state as well as the central government, because many of the migrant workers, uh, they are willing to return back to their, that home. So there are about 40 to 50 million seasonal migrant workers is there in India. Recent days, the global media have broadcast images of hundreds of thousands migrant workers from several states trudging for miles and miles on highways. Some walked more than 1,000 kilometers to return to their home villages. Recently, that in Aurangabad in Maharashtra, so there is a incident. So while these that migrant workers, they are moving from so one place to another place, they face the problem, the accident. They should be given both the cash transfer and nutrients, food, to avoid this type of the migrant things. In my view, the intervention of the government of India will have to be considerably uh, enhanced the following ways. These are immediate measures to be considered as, and if the crisis grows, these measures will have to be updated. So, for example, the payment of farmers to PM Kisan should rise at least rupees 12,000 per year, and 50% of the amount should be paid immediately. Tenants farmer should be included as beneficiaries of the scheme. There should be an immediate expansion of a Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana to ensure compensation payments to farmers affected the COVID-19 pandemic. Holders of all MGNRGS job cards should be provided an unemployment allowance for assistance worth at least of the payment to be received by them, assuming 100 days work per year. The government should take steps to ensure food grain is distributed to all households outside the priority list, also for a period of 3 months at the rate of 5 kg per capita per month. There should be efforts to arrange food, shelter, and clothing to all migrant workers in villages. Steps should be explored to provide migrant workers with cooked food by the government agencies. The government should consider waiving the interest cost of all outstanding crop loans and ensure flow of fresh loans to credit small and marginal farmers. So the Kharif season of 2020, MSP for farmers in the 2020-21 season should be substantially risen to 1.5 times the cost to cost of production. So procurement should also be significantly expanded. In case the crisis prolongs to behind 2 months, the government should prepare itself for the uh, takeover of large parts of the procurement and supply of essential food items from the private sector, including trucks, warehouses, godowns, and establishments. whatever the discussion we had to conclude all those things, we may conclude like this. The COVID-19 is an un- unprecedented challenge for India. Its large population and the economic dependence on informal labor make lockdown and other social distancing measures hugely disruptive. The central and state government have recognized the challenge and responded aggressively, but this response should be just the beginning. India must be prepared to scale it up as events unfold, easing the economic impacts through even greater public uh, program support and policies that keep market functioning. Finally, we may conclude like this: farmers are the backbones of Indian economy because whatever the lockdown or whatever other disaster which is going to be occurred in India during all the time, the farmers are the major that affected people in India as well as the world. So therefore, we need to protect these farmers. We need to empower the farmer. We need to uplift the farmer and then farming society. Then only we may able to see a sound and a strong, India in future. Thank you, one and all. Thank you very much. And also, I thank the organizer for providing me this opportunity to share a few thoughts regarding the present that COVID-19 or coronavirus crisis in Indian economy as well as in the world economy. Thank you very much. Then I thank all the participants for your patience hearing. So thank you very much.